The sun was barely lifting its head over the jagged horizon when rancher Colton Hale rode out across the brittle grasslands. The sky spread in a burning sweep of orange and gold that made the whole west look like it was waking up angry. His horse, Dust Whisper, snorted uneasily as if it smelled trouble long before Colton did. But the rancher was a man carved out of duty and hard seasons, a man who knew the land almost as well as he knew his own heartbeat. And today, that heartbeat was steady as a church bell as he pushed toward the northern ridge where his cattle had been drifting too far from the main herd. The wind had a strange bite to it that morning, sharp, cold, and whispering through the mesquite like it carried a warning. And although he tried to shake it off as just another odd twist in the shifting weather, something in his gut told him this day would not end the way it began. The earth felt different under his horse's hooves. The birds were absent, and even the insects seemed to have gone silent, turning the open plains eerily hollow. By the time Colton reached the ridge, Dust Whisper halted on its own, ears forward, muscles tensing, with the same skittish energy he'd only seen before. Tornadoes and ambushes. And then Colton heard it, the faint, desperate cry of someone calling for help, a thin voice carried by the wind like a ghost's struggle. He dismounted, squinting into the brush, hand resting gently but ready on the handle of his revolver, and followed the sound, until he came upon a small ravine he didn't remember being so deep. The last season, its edges crumbling like dry cake, its throat sinking into shadow. At first he thought the figure at the bottom was a hurt calf or a collapsed deer, but when the weak cry came again, "Please, someone help," he realized it was human, and without hesitation he slid down the incline, dirt sliding under his, boots and stones clattering after him, until he reached the person lying twisted at the bottom. It was a woman, young, bruised, her clothing torn in strange patterns, her breathing ragged, and she stared up at him with eyes wide, not just from pain, but from something else that looked an awful lot like fear. I can't move my legs," she gasped, voice trembling like a leaf in a storm. And when Colton knelt beside her and reached down to feel for injury, expecting broken bones or swelling, his hand brushed against something rigid beneath the dirt. Something not bone, not wood, not anything he'd ever felt under a human body before, almost as if something was embedded in the ground beneath her or growing from it. He brushed more soil aside and felt it again, a cold, metallic shape that pulsed faintly, as though humming under his fingertips. And for a moment he froze because the sensation wasn't natural, wasn't Westbourne, wasn't anything a man like him should have been touching out here in cattle country. The woman grabbed his wrist with surprising strength and whispered, "Don't pull it. Don't touch it. Please." But her voice cracked in a way that told him she was hiding something, maybe something she didn't understand herself. A flicker of light, quick, bluish, unnatural, glinted, just under the surface of the dirt like lightning, trapped in the ground, and Dust Whisper whinnied loudly at the top of the ravine as if warning Colton to get away. His heart pounded, his instincts screamed, but the rancher in him refused to abandon someone in danger. Still, questions clawed at his mind. Who was she? What was she doing out here alone? And what in God's name had he just touched beneath her? As he carefully slid his arms beneath her shoulders, trying to lift her without disturbing whatever mysterious object lay below, she winced sharply and whispered again, "It's not supposed to be here. They weren't supposed to find me," before going limp in his arms. Colton felt a chill crawl across his spine despite the rising sun, and as he slowly carried her up the ravine's edge, he kept glancing back at the place where that strange light had flickered. The ground was still now, still as a grave, but he couldn't shake the feeling something beneath it was awake, watching, waiting. At the top, Dust Whisper pranced nervously, and Colton laid the woman gently over the saddle, securing her as best he could before mounting behind her. The whole ride home felt wrong, not dangerous exactly, but heavy, like the land had shifted and the sky was watching him too closely. He didn't know yet that the moment he touched that thing under the dirt, his life had veered into a direction no rancher, no ordinary man in the West could ever be prepared for. But he felt the first tug of it deep in his bones, an unshakable certainty that this woman hadn't fallen by accident, that what he found wasn't meant for human hands, and that someone or something would come looking for it soon. But as his ranch finally came into view, smoke curling from the chimney, horses grazing peacefully, everything looking as ordinary as any good morning on Hale land, he whispered a quiet promise to himself. He would protect this woman. He would figure out what he had uncovered, and no matter what truth waited in the shadows of this mystery, he would stand his ground like every Hale before him, even if the truth came riding out of the desert with teeth, fire, or ghosts of forgotten worlds at its back. And as he carried her inside, unaware of the faint blue glow beginning to pulse under the ravine soil far behind, him growing brighter, alive, calling, he couldn't help but feel that viewers of this tale, anyone who dared follow this strange unfolding story, should stay close, keep listening, and subscribe to hear what happens next, because the West was about to reveal something it had kept buried for far too long.